So Regenesis is the process of midwifing and rebirthing the human condition on all levels. If we take a moment to consider the concept that it invokes an image of letting go of all that doesn't work personally, socially, and globally, and allowing that to be compost for an innovative approach to build, design, and architect the future that we truly want. We must focus on every aspect of the life experience, from spirituality to art and culture, the environment and stewardship of it, health and wellness of spirit, mind, and body, the idea of alternative economic and governance models, green and renewable energy, appropriate science and technology, independent media and communications, and peace and justice. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be watching this interview today. I'd like to welcome all of you to one of our shows here on Regenerative Media TV platform. And you can always go to the website, regenmediatv.com. And this is our show that I host called Regenesis. And I find it a very provocative word. And before I introduce him, I'm going to have our guests give some thoughts or maybe perspectives of any imagery that word might generate. But we like the idea of Regenesis because we're doing a lot of work around full spectrum regenerative design. And we love interviewing various solutionaries and visionaries that are doing amazing work and innovations around spirituality, arts, culture, also people that are working with ecological restoration, media, governance, economics, peace, and justice. So these are all areas that seem to be going through this regenesis, this rebirth, or as many people have called it in Buckminster Fuller, we're going through a regenaissance, very much like a renaissance. But the idea with the show Regenesis is we're focusing on the concept of new humanity, new earth, new paradigm, and new design. And I always like to kind of put question marks alongside of that because these are words that are used a lot right now. And I'm always inquisitive as a journalist and kind of investigator, seeker of truth and understanding, you know, what's new and what's ancient and what's being kind of recycled or rebranded. So again, welcome everyone to Regenesis, New Earth, New Humanity, New Paradigm, New Design. And I'm very happy today to have on the show someone I met just recently who's no newcomer to media and actually has done a sizable amount of work. I'd like to welcome Stanley Pokras from othernetworks.org. So welcome.
Well, hi, thank you so much. Yeah, it's fun to be here with you, and we'll see where we go. I would probably start with my motto. That would probably be an easy thing for me to remember. Helpfulness brings people into focus. And that comes from the day that a casserole showed up in my life from some people, and I asked my wife, where did this come from? I was recovering from hip replacement at the time. And so this casserole showed up, and I said, well, who sent this? And my wife gives me these names, and I don't remember who those names were, but I said, well, who are they? They're your son's housemates. Oh, I remember them. Yes. And their names appeared, their faces appeared in my mind, having heard who they were, having been to their apartment. And so I helped my son move in and out of there. And that made me think that all of a sudden, since I was helped by this casserole, that helpfulness brings people into focus. So that's the story behind that. And I've been happy with that ever since. And I talk about helpfulness as a part of what's coming in the world. I'm looking.
It sounds like quite the quantum casserole there.
Yes. What I make from that is that we're on our way into, as long as we make it through this awkward period right now, we're into the age of helpfulness. And the age of helpfulness is when people learn actually to take care of each other and the planet. And God bless us all for being able to see our that light open up, and we take care of each other, and we take care of the planet, and we make it through this awkward period of humanity's existence.
Absolutely, or the Regenesis, or the
Yes.
Regenesis. And
Yes.
it's very interesting because as you're talking, I have all these words that have come into my vocabulary lately that have been used in conversations with people, like visioneers, artivists, artists who are activists, solutionaries, the internet, the mycelial network, and that applies to many things, not just the subterranean ecosystem of the forest. And one of my favorite is apocalyptimist. So we might be having this apocalypse, which simply means to reveal. It doesn't mean like the end of the world, the meanings that we give things. But in the time that we have today, I'd love to just dig down a little bit about who is Stanley Pokras. We don't want to get too personal, but how did your life experience bring you to the work that you've been doing with the other networks?
Well, the great secret is LSD. And I hope people don't mind me talking about that. In 1969, I'm sitting with some friends in the attic of our house, and my friend Tom asked me if I've ever heard of the Whole Earth catalog. And I'm going, wow, we need a whole Earth catalog of people. And like I said, it was an LSD trip that is still happening today. I'm still on this very same LSD trip of thinking that we need to have a whole Earth catalog of people. And I've been trying to figure out how to make that happen ever since. Oh, I guess I need to say more.
I'm here. No, I'm here. I'm just
Okay.
listening. I
All right.
don't want to intervene too much, but I like what you're saying in a sense, because when we had met the other day, we were talking about one of the things I wrote about Earthstock, which is the Eco Spiritual Summit coming up August 19th to 25th in Colorado, but broadcast around the world. bringing in another one of my favorite words, luminaries and solutionaries and visionaries from around the world. But we got into this discussion about, Woodstock to Earthstock. Because whenever I say Earthstock, people say, oh, like Woodstock. I'm like, well, in a way, but this is now 55 years later. And it's not just, sex, drugs, rock and roll and anti-war. And I start to like try to give people a better perception of the whole baby boomers, Woodstock generation, all the things that happened, the anti-war movement, luminaries like Martin Luther King, John F. Kennedy, the peace movement, the back to the land movement, people like Stephen Gaskin, anime were doing things about midwifing and changing the perception of how to do birthing, the American Indian movement, the civil rights, human rights, art, consciousness, music, just like exploded. And part of that was a reaction to a broken old paradigm society. But a lot of that, as you know, and are saying, was tied into psychoactive substances that help to accelerate the shift of consciousness. So from out of this experience, if you want to share a little more about that, and the knowledge coming from this, this Woodstock generation, which you even said you were at Woodstock, correct?
Yes, that's right. Yes, I went there and I had to park my my British Racing green car with the about a mile or two away and walk and walk and walk and walk with people walking in the opposite direction, a whole stream of people walking in both directions. Where are we going? Where is the concert? Nobody knew. We were just keeping walking until eventually the concert showed up with its giant screens and somebody playing the sitar. And I'm looking at this screen, and where is the guy playing the sitar? And I look, oh, there he is. He's just a tiny little person on this great big giant screen. And Ravi Shankar sitting there playing music. And we were arriving, and there was nobody taking tickets at the door. And it was a free concert. And I enjoyed it there for almost 3 days. And having to sleep in somebody's barn with a bunch of other people.
So going back to that experience, and of course, a lot of what came out of that generation, how has that inspired you and influenced you in the work that you're doing today? And what exactly is other networks? What are you doing today for people who might not know of your work?
Well, Other Networks is my effort to honor the whole Earth catalog, essentially. And in the 1980s, I was let's back up a little bit. After hearing the words "whole Earth catalog," I didn't know what it was. It's a directory of all kinds of useful things. And having heard those words, I decided I needed to try to find something to do to help people connect with each other, because that's what that all implied to me. What can I do to help people find each other? Whole Earth catalog, yes. And I happened to run across an ad in the Village Voice. I live in Philadelphia, which is not very far, if anybody knows, from New York City. And in the Village Voice, the newspaper from Manhattan, there was an ad in the classified section. If you want something done, or you want to do something, you want to buy something, you want to sell something, you want to do anything, come to see us. We are called Everything for Everybody. So I said, what the heck is that? So I made a journey up to New York City to see what Everything for Everybody meant. And I find myself standing in front of a small storefront with the cards pasted to the windows and cards on the walls inside the room. And there are people standing around reading the cards. And so I went inside to see what it was about. And each card had something that somebody wanted or something somebody offered. And the gentleman who ran the place had a box on his desk with the names and addresses of the people who wrote the numbered cards that were on the walls. And he was connecting people to each other. And not only did he have the names and addresses on the box on in his box on his desk, but he also was interviewing these people and talking to them and making connections whenever he could. Who you want to see so and so? You oh yes. Um, he was a an escaped Catholic worker. I say escaped because he got tired of their methodology and he wanted to do something more direct to connect people with each other. And so he started this little company he called Everything for Everybody. And its purpose was to connect people to each other. And he built up a clientele of people from Manhattan who, and from around the world, some of them. We didn't have any internet then, so it was only people who could walk into his store that he could talk to. And I got there and I'm looking at this, what he's doing, and it's like he's connecting people by having a membership fee. And anybody who had paid a membership fee could have as many contacts as they wanted and put in as many uh, ads into the system as they wanted to put in. And it was beautiful. I thought, whoa, okay. So I just explained this whole system. People could buy a membership, put in cards, take out information about who, and people were being able to meet each other. And I said, can I do this in Philadelphia? And the gentleman was so nice. He said, sure, you can. All you need to do is pay me 50% of your gross revenue, and you can have my literature, and you can have the name, and you can do whatever you want with it in Philadelphia. So I said, fine. I at that age, I had no idea what 50% of gross revenue meant. So it was an easy decision to say, sure, why not? And I went back home and I rented a storefront in Philadelphia's Haight-Ashbury, the South Street section of Philadelphia, which was where all the hippies met, and rented a store there for $100 a month. And the store rents were really low because the city had decided to tear down the south side of South Street and the north side of Bainbridge, the next street over, and build a highway. So they were working to get everybody who owned the store along this strip of what was called South Street to try to close up shop and go away and sell their space, sell their building to the city so that they could tear it all down and build a highway. And in the course of
Progress.
yes, in the course of my being there, running my Everything for Everybody, which was turned into a place where people could come and ask me things and put things in and take things out, and people met each other. Some people met and got married. Some people met employers. Some people met housemates. It was a very active
Wow.
process. Yeah. So yes, it was a fun thing to do, and I did that for a year. And that's in my initial storefront, which was a tiny little space. And then after that lease was only
Yeah.
almost up for that, there's a big building down the street opened up as a opportunity, and I rented that, and along with
Amazing at the same time you were doing that. Timothy Leary was dreaming about the computers, and Steve Wozniak was
right,
busy working with some of the merry pranksters and other people in La Honda and Northern
yeah,
California to come up with
it was
computers, and eventually
nine,
Apple
nine,
computer. And
1971 was my first store, and 72 we had the larger store with a art gallery and a food co-op, and about 9 or 10 of us lived in that building, and we had our own.
wow.
Yeah.
So, looking back at the work you were doing then and what you're doing now, and I wanted just to mention you have this fascinating symbol behind you. And again, a lot of this show is interviewing fascinating people who have really kind of been at the cutting edge of the Regenesis, the regenerative thinking, the innovational thinking and stuff. So, how did that experience back then propel you forward? And is there any relationship to the incredible image and
Yeah.
the
Well,
symbols behind you?
that's a image from an episode of Humanity Rising that was about biomimicry. So this is a still shot of a animated toy that the lady who was discussing biomimicry created as part of her program on regeneration. So this essentially is a design to indicate. And when you see the animation, it's right now it's just stuck. It's one, it's one screenshot, but it actually, although the wheels spin, and she has a description of the game that this is on biomimicry, and I don't have the episode number in my head, but it was a lovely episode of Humanity Rising, and
Well, it sounds fascinating too,
mhm.
because I find doing the work around, we used to call it sustainability, and that's kind of evolved into regeneration. Because, I mean, if we've been talking about sustainability and trying to do it since the baby boomer Woodstock generation, and before that, of course, you had indigenous people doing stewardship and regenerative, sustainable things without destroying an ecosystem. Um, that right now, a big part of it is we have to look towards biomimicry, or we have to look towards nature's intelligence, because the solutions are there if we can just get out of our own intellectual way and understand how these natural systems work harmoniously together. So it's a fascinating area of interest, because a lot of the people I'm directly connected to through Earthstock Enterprises, as a consulting company and bringing regenerative solutions forward. Again, they really look towards nature, whether it's activating the mycelial web around reforestation, or bringing back beavers to re-wet and landscapes, or doing things around fire prevention or community resilience or watershed restoration or soil remediation. Nature's been doing that. And actually, during the pandemic, when we slowed down and stopped for a couple of years of just consuming and destroying everything around us, the planet did start to regenerate. Fish populations came back, wildlife, coral reefs were healing themselves. But it's unfortunately, we have this passion to destroy things faster than they can regenerate. So again, regeneration is vital right now. Just trying to have this idea of, well, we're just going to sustain because the collapse is accelerating. But again, like you were saying, looking towards nature.
Mhm.
So how does biomimicry, and how do these principles of regeneration, or whatever the work you're doing around education, how does that fit into any of the work that you're involved in or support at this time or connected to?
Well, the thing that I'm most involved with outside of my own design of other networks.org is called Humanity Rising. Humanity Rising is Jim Garrison's and Ubiquity University's answer to what do we do now that we have this total collapse of society, or total stop of society for the pandemic. And I started listening to Humanity Rising on day one, when I heard that Jane Goodall was going to be one of the speakers, and I still am a fan of hers, and she's still amazingly alive and doing great work, helping youth to find their way to a more regenerative society. Um, so I heard that she was going to be on, so I listened to that first episode, and came back a couple of days later and listened to further. The first week of Humanity Rising was set up to highlight women's interests, and the second week of Humanity Rising was designed to highlight the interests of young people. So I thought that was interesting, and listened to those episodes, not as closely as I do now, but by the that was the beginning of Humanity Rising on May 20th of 2020, and I started listening more intensely through June, and I didn't start recording things from that until later on, but by the middle of June, I saw that there was people coming to Humanity Rising each day and writing to each other in the Zoom chat. And I like that a lot because I have a passion for collecting information based on my interest in the whole Earth catalog and my efforts at replicating, or at least honoring, the whole Earth catalog's basic concept of information helps people find each other. In the course of the time there, the beginning of my life, 1970 or so, 70 through the 80s, I started collecting information about networks and networks of people. And by 1980, actually started a newsletter called Other Networks Newsletter. And people can still find my Other Networks newsletter on the Internet Archive. There are 8 issues of the Other Networks newsletter mounted on the Internet Archive. And I just heard from a lady who's publishing a book about other networks. And she was inspired by the name of our newsletter to call her book Other Networks something. I don't have the full title in my head, but that's coming out soon. A book on her explorations of how people communicated prior to the internet. And I'm waiting to see more of that. I just got this lovely email from a friend of mine who is the person who actually mounted my newsletter on the Internet Archive. He sent me this message from this lady who's now getting ready to publish a book that has Other Networks as the part of the title. Well, I've got way off direction here. I forget where I was.
Well, no, it's fascinating, and sometimes less is more. I just want people to get a sense of what you're doing, and again, you've been innovating connectivity again going back to 1960s and 70s, and I thought it was fascinating on the talk we had about from Woodstock to Earthstock and the work that you're doing now, and kind of really being a visionary or a pioneer in this idea of connection and talking about, everything, the storefront you had about everything you need or would want to connect
Everything
to.
for everybody. Yes.
Fascinating. So in the last couple of minutes that we have, what do you think, looking back at when the movement started to kind of lift off to where we are now, do you think there's been incredible progress? Do you think we've de-evolved? What are some of the obstacles or limitations you see, or just some of the wisdom that you might have over the last 50 some odd years of watching the social movement of consciousness and connection?
Yes, and that's what it is. It's a social movement, and it's a awakening. The global mind. Where is the global mind? Where has it been? And where is it now? And where does it need to go? And the book from Willis Harman on the called Global Mind Change has been a sort of a mantra for me for many years. Global mind change is going to require more and more people to believe that we are one as a humanity, and it's going to be a difficult thing to do, because most people don't believe anything of the sorts. They don't think that the rest of the world deserves any credit, and in fact, they think we should be constantly conflicted and fighting with those other people to get more resources for ourselves. And I divide the world into 2 components: those people who want to own everything, and those people who want to share everything. And that's a basic set of concepts for me. And I really prefer hanging out with the people who want to share the world.
Absolutely. And what's interesting, I kind of divide the world, not divide it, but I put it into 3 categories right now about soul contracts. There's been those who decided to help bring us to this moment in history that are deciding to leave. Many luminaries, musicians, philosophers, artists, poets, civil rights activists. Then you have those people who have through soul contract agreed to be a bridge to the next paradigm of what's coming, but might not be here to actually inherit or be immersed or actually experience that, although we experience it in our own personal ways. And then there's those who, myself, being a bridge. But being the tail end, I was born in 1966, so I'm not exactly a baby boomer, but I grew up with all of those essential values, the music. I mean, as soon as we hit the 1980s and I saw where popular culture was going and the general attitude of people, it was completely discouraging to try to engage socially. So I kind of became more of a create my own culture. But the third being people who are a bridge, but hopefully will be here to help enjoy some of the fruits of the effort to get us to that. And we see right now, through these soul contracts, a lot of people just, even through the last 4 years of pandemic, I mean, so many people have left the planet. And then there are those who are carrying the torch that are inspiring the next generation or the seventh generation. And there's those who are naive and stubborn like myself that insist on remaining here till we actually get there. And I'm working on the potentiality of longevity of being hundreds of years old. I remain an apocalyptimist that it could happen. And I mean, literally, there could be something that happens tomorrow, a solar flare, a planetary cataclysm, a spiritual mass awakening where things could change very quickly, especially in the age of technology and connection. But I remain optimistic that we are eventually going to be able to embody and have the world that many of us know intuitively. And part of that might be a lot of the people in their soul contracts might have to leave the planet too, or we go to another dimension. I'm not sure what that will look like. I know a lot of people are waiting for the aliens to land. I'm not putting my chips down on that one either. We'll see what happens, but I remain
would
open.
say that you should.
I'm open.
They can be really helpful. A big chunk of what Jim Garrison and the people at Humanity Rising talk about is the nature of the relationship that we can be having with people from somewhere else, and people from not only somewhere else but somewhat else, because there are episodes of Humanity Rising talking about the multiple ways for people to communicate telepathically, and other kinds of modalities. The subject is modalities of interaction with ourselves and with the people from other places, people from other time. So watch out, because we're about to have a breakthrough, especially now that the government of the United States is telling the military that they need to collect and turn over all the information that they have on sightings and so on of to the internet. The National Archive is supposed to be collecting all this stuff.
I mean, I'm definitely keeping my options open. Don't get me wrong. I just see a lot of people that they're taking no responsibility of for the environment or their actions, and they're depending on they're going to get whooshed off to another dimension. So I leave my options open. But meanwhile, while I'm here in the school of planet Earth, I'm going to do my best to, follow a conscious protocol and try to embody. And it's amazing. I just the other night I just saw this movie that came out of India called Kalki. Kalki 2825, which is, Kalki is the name of the avatar in Hinduism after Krishna that comes thousands of years later to help bring this mass awakening consciousness of humanity from the dark age of Kali Yuga to the age of light of Satya Yuga, where we can have a golden age. They tend to think it could be thousands of years away. Everyone has their perception and perspective, but it is very interesting right now where so many people are talking about these different prophecies and different teachings that seem to be, pointing to this time of transition that we're in. But anyways, if you have a chance to see it, it was the most expensive movie ever. It was actually a $6 billion budget to produce this movie. I mean, it's I will say it's beyond Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or many of these other, and I know we talk about George Lucas. That's another rabbit hole for another time. But it's a fascinating movie because it starts off with, in the not too distant future, where there's a complete collapse of society and very dystopian, and the reemergence of this avatar. Again, every tradition has its name, Ahura Mazda and Zoroastrianism, or the Moshiach or Jesus or Maitreya Buddha. They all talk about whether it'll be one person or a mass awakening. I don't want to say, but I think the fact that we see more and more people waking up is definitely inspiring and encouraging. So hopefully,
The dawning of the age of helpfulness is has a theme song about the dawning of the age of
Wow.
Aquarius, and I switch it around and I say helpfulness instead of just Aquarius. That's a nice thing, but helpfulness is much more active and much
I see
more.
a musical being midwifed right now.
That's right.
This is the dawn. I think you're
Dawning
on
of
to
the
something.
age of helpfulness. Yes, that's it.
Wow.
And we start to
Fantastic.
learn to respect each other, and not only respect each other, but actually set up a system that allows everybody to have what they need and to participate in society without being chased around by somebody with a gun.
Yep. Well, I just want to thank everyone for tuning in. I know we live in an age of attention deficit, so I don't like to do too self-indulgent videos. I want people to meet some of the people that are doing the great work here. But I want to remind everyone that you've been watching Regenesis here on Regenerative Media TV. And I've been talking with Stanley Pokras.
Thank you.
And he's part of the founder of othernetworks.org. And before we go, I mean, I have to say, I'm looking at you, and I know again we talked about Woodstock, the Earthstock, and all these things. You have this very Jerry Garcia-esque aura to yourself, but you also have kind of, I'm seeing like this Swami kind of archetype, and yeah, and I see a really authentic person. I'm really happy and honored that we got this time to talk with you, and also right here as we move towards the Earthstock event, all these things are aggregating and accelerating. But before we go, any final words of wisdom for our viewers today?
Well, we're going to get to the age of helpfulness, whether we like it or not. Either we do that or we die. So join me. Join Humanity Rising. Join the Earthstock celebration that's coming up in the next month. And I won't be doing very much with that because Humanity Rising, which is my place that I spend most of my time, is on vacation all of August every year. And so I will be attempting to be on vacation as well. And which is why I didn't agree when Shannon MacArthur started talking about her work on Earthstock. I said, well, I'm not going to be around. Okay, because it's the time when Humanity Rising shuts down each year, and I want to take advantage of that. But in the meantime, I'm very much encouraging what she's doing, organizing 7 days of speakers from Humanity Rising. She's been picking out people and signing them up to make presentations on various topics that have been taken directly from their interests in Humanity Rising. And Humanity Rising has 960 something episodes, and I document all 900 something of them in Other Networks newsletter, othernetworks.org. And
Wow,
so people
amazing.
can find what's been going on by going to othernetworks.org.
Amazing. Well, I want to thank you for your time. And I will say the age of helpfulness sounds a lot better as a song as the age of survivalness.
Right.
Yeah. Whenever I hear, I think of the song by The Who, right? We'll be fighting in the streets with our children at our feet. And so let's continue to germinate and cultivate and midwife the positive, compassionate, loving, unified narrative as the old falls away. And then, again, we try to inspire and educate and awaken people to the highest potential. But again, a lot of soul contracts have made to kind of go on a different timeline. And we bless everyone and their sovereignty and their decisions, but we definitely are continuing to move the evolutionary process forward. So thank you so much for your time today, Stanley, and have a great weekend.
Thank you for having me. And I love The Who. They have a song called Join the Band, and it starts off with a bang, 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 bang. I'm a Juice Heart player. And it starts off and it features the Juice Heart throughout that song. Join the band. And thank you so much for having me here.
Great. Thank you so much for your time. So Woodstock to Earthstock, a few moments here with another luminary of over 50 years committed and helping to connect people here on Regenesis. Have a great weekend, and thank you everyone for tuning in.
So Regenesis is the process of midwifing and rebirthing the human condition on all levels. If we take a moment to consider the concept that it invokes an image of letting go of all that doesn't work personally, socially, and globally, and allowing that to be compost for an innovative approach to build, design, and architect the future that we truly want. We must focus on every aspect of the life experience, from spirituality to art and culture, the environment and stewardship of it, health and wellness of spirit, mind, and body, the idea of alternative economic and governance models, green and renewable energy, appropriate science and technology, independent media and communications, and peace and justice.